Good morning, this is Colin Schumacher. You're watching GNN, the Geneva News Network. Today we're running a segment on two co-authors, Anna and Ava, who are in the process of developing a new book. So let's just get right into it. Anna, Ava, how are you guys doing today?
Very well, thank you.
We're excited about the release of our new book.
I'm glad you guys are doing well, and I'm really excited about the new book too. I've been waiting a while to get my hands on it and be able to read it. So let's just get right into it and take it back to when it all started.
4 months ago.
I'm finding a lot about the religion from the Anglo-Saxon era.
Really? I'm finding a lot about the social structure.
Wow, we might have just enough to start the first section of our novel.
Wow!
Hey, Ava.
Hey! So, my first main point is that Anglo-Saxon literature had the capability of changing people's social views of each other, themselves, and the characteristics of a true nobleman who was pleasing in the eyes of God.
Oh, so what type of lessons were taught to teach these social views?
Well, literature at this time was mainly centered on heroism and religion. As you might know, there were many barbaric wars during this time period, and being a hero is what every nobleman strived for. Persuasive literature influenced men to fight in wars because ultimately it would lead them to becoming a hero.
Really? I found a similar point. Anglo-Saxons placed an emphasis on military honor. The text of Beowulf is a prime example of the importance placed on military strength and bravery. Beowulf is given a plethora of gifts from the king, and a tower was erected for him once he died because of his skill in killing ravenous monsters.
What a great example! To go back to how religious literature affected social structure, it encouraged people to be holy, living life and making choices that would be pleasing to God. It taught that everyone had a destiny in life, and in order to walk with God in afterlife, they must follow their destined faith. In Beowulf, the character Beowulf is a very religious figure, and he believed that God was the reason for his successes that were laid upon him. And because of this, he tried to follow his destined path in life.
To continue with that point, the Anglo-Saxons grappled with the difference between fate and God. Christianity was beginning to be widely accepted, and this is in part due to the belief that God is forgiving and benevolent, or his fate is uncaring. This is evidenced in the Wanderer poem. In it, the man fled from fate, whom he viewed as uncaring, and turned to a merciful God. Also, the medicine of the time was rooted in faith. People put their faith in God because they believed that he cared about their struggles.
Back to my point. In the Anglo-Saxon time period, everyone had a clear social class they belonged to, and literature helped dictate people's positions. Being literate and acquiring the skill to create literature had the potential to move up one's status. In many situations, the more a thane or king could understand and create literature, the more power they had. As well, most Anglo-Saxon poetry arose from word of mouth and was meant for mental entertainment. In other words, if one could write and present a story or song to the king, they were of value and again presented the opportunity of moving up the social status. From performance to power, it is clear that the Anglo-Saxon literature had an effect on social structure in a multitude of ways, some of which are still in effect today.
Some things never change. Reflecting on my point of religious medicinal practices, some churches still use the concept of faith healing when they do the anointing of the sick during Mass.
Oh yeah, so like with Anglo-Saxon teaching of chivalry, we still tend to uphold many of these characteristics in the ideal, proper man.
And another effect, modern effect dating back to Anglo-Saxon time, is the importance placed on military. Today we celebrate Veterans Day and have multiple memorial in gratitude of veterans who gave their life. We glorify them similarly to how the Anglo-Saxon heroes were glorified. Ava! We just got back our first edited draft.
Oh my gosh, let's take a look, I'm so excited. Anna, what does watch antecedent agreement mean? I don't even know what an antecedent is. Because religion was very influential in the spread of literacy, it played a major role in society and was the key reason for an increase in literacy among social classes during the medieval era. Social movement was uncommon, but if someone was to heavily study literature, one could gain a higher role in their religion. From there, one could work their way up to a position of power and authority. man, even a simple farmer, might rise to become a bishop or even the next pope.
Did you know that Christianity was being questioned during this era? Chaucer's Canterbury Tales captures this wavering notion of religion. Chaucer depicts religious figures who are corrupt and who are not ideal role models. For example, the nun wore nice clothing and a flashy brooch with the phrase, "Love conquers all." She doesn't adhere to the rules set for a nun. Chaucer also depicted the hypocrisy of religion. Pilgrims were expected to be generous, devout people, but many of the characters fell short of this. The doctor was excessively concerned with money, and he was not a generous man, even though he was on this pilgrimage. Many men at the time were enlisted to fight in the Crusades. It was claimed that this was a religious war, but this in itself is hypocritical, since God demanded that his people never kill, and instead love their neighbors and enemies.
Since we're talking about Canterbury Tales, every tale teaches a different moral lesson, and each character arguably shows a good example of chivalry, or the opposite. To be a respected knight or qualified nobleman, one must act chivalrous, as it was an expectation in society because of its promotion by literature. People in society gravitated towards these ideas, ultimately trying to apply them to their own life and judging others based on their lack of chivalry. In the Morte d'Arthur, the knights are clearly worshipped for their bravery in battle and legendary actions, similar to Canterbury Tales. Actually, this method of moral teachings and heroism surrounding chivalrous knights was extremely common in medieval times and is still frequently used today. Elegies and epic poems are both used to dramatically tell the adventures of a heroic knight. It's also fitting to have heroic couplets to focus in on the brave actions taken by a knight. Extended metaphors work well in explaining moral-based tales, as it gives an ongoing comparison. The literary device of understatement is also commonly used to tie in moral themes in a less obvious way.
I also found information about the medicine from the medieval times.
Really? So what did you find about the medicine?
No, instead of medicine being rooted in religion and prayer, like in the Anglo-Saxon times, doctors have shifted to using secular scientific ideas, like stopping blood flow using stitches to treat hemorrhages. Since the people did not rely on God to cure them of illnesses, it's natural that they began to question the supreme power of God in the church.
While talking about health, literature even had an influence on daily hygiene. Texts such as hygiene manuals majorly influenced society because it helped create a more cleanly society to live in.
Today, most medicine is based off of science. We saw the shift from religious medicine to scientific medicine in this era.
Similarly, we still continue to use some of the same hygiene practices today that was taught during the medieval times, such as washing your face and hands every day.
Also, religion is still questioned today, even more so than in this time. Today, there are many atheists and religious people who question their religion.
The novel is going great so far. I feel like we're getting the hang of it for sure. This section is excellent, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. Are you kidding me? We're only halfway done?
She's not doing any work.
Ugh, she's so intense. She needs to take a chill pill. Anna, I have a lot to tell you about the Renaissance period.
Really?
The printing press was created at this time and revolutionized society. It allowed for the widespread flow of information and new ideas and allowed much greater access to literature, subsequently encouraging greater literacy. As well, this new abundance of literature led to free thinkers, educated learners, and gave people a path to better understanding their religion and developing their own independent beliefs. As you can imagine, many more kids got an education, as an emphasis was being put on literacy. More parents beyond the noble class could afford formal schooling, and even for those who could not, the easy access to literature still served as a form of education that was previously not available. The printing press wasn't the only reason more people could access literature. Authors also began writing in multiple languages, allowing more people to read. Of course, this also increased the national literacy and created more diverse communities, as language was not as geographically restricting. This diversity diversification of literature also led to bilingual speakers, need for translators, and so on. While talking about this, Shakespeare, a well-known playwright in this period, benefited greatly from the printing press. Although many of his works were performed rather than read privately, the printing press still influenced the spread of his works. For example, the plays Othello and Midsummer Night's Dream, which we read in depth, greatly benefited from the printing press. Wow, the Renaissance was just an exciting time for literature, and its impact on society was quite overwhelmingly wondrous.
Wow, I never knew that the printing press was this influential. During my research, I found that the Catholic Church was facing an increased amount of dissenters. Many people believed that the church was overbearing and corrupt. Many thought that the church was more concerned with politics than with morals. There were various church leaders that used their power for their own personal gains, and this only increased the drive for change. Thus, the church split into Protestantism and Catholicism. Also, people became increasingly fascinated in the supernatural, a belief the church tried to quell. In A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, he included supernatural ideas such as fairies and a magical plant that can make someone fall in love. This literature is evidence towards the fascination in the supernatural. The medicine of this time was also influenced by this fascination. Doctors used astrology to determine whether a person would heal or deteriorate. They also used herbal medicine, which relates to the potions that witches were thought to use. Today, horoscopes use planets, the sun, and the moon to determine how each zodiac sign will be affected. This is similar to the astrology and medicinal practices.
Interesting. When you think about it, the printing press was just as revolutionary as the computer or the internet. Both caused the spread of literature, new ideas, and a knowledge to a wide audience. Also, both of these created the snowball effect with affecting new inventions that followed these two.
Today, many people question religious presence in politics, as they did back in the Renaissance era. Some people do not believe that religion should influence laws or politics, but today people are free to voice their opinion. Martin Luther was outlawed due to his writings that contradicted the church and questioned religion, whereas today people are free to write and share their opinions, which is a valuable privilege.
You know, Anna, writing this book together and immersing ourselves in the literature has really taught me it's not just about retaining facts and comprehending the information, but rather making connections that allow one to relate something within the literature to their own life or society. We read literature to better understand the world we live in, be it the past or the present. The more connections we make in literature, the more value it is to our lives.
I've noticed that as well. The more I focus on the themes, symbols, and literary devices, the deeper I truly understand the literature. Shakespeare used different rhyme schemes to accent different lines and stress their importance. In fact, many authors use rhyme schemes throughout their writings. To stress certain lines, couplets, a series of 2 rhyming lines, were often used. Sonnets were a popular form of poem. Shakespearean sonnets had a rhyme scheme of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G. It has 3 quatrains and a couplet. Italian sonnets have an octave with the rhyme scheme A, B, B, A, and a sestet with either a C, D, E, or C, D rhyme scheme. These patterns allow for a better flow, making the poem much more enjoyable. Quatrains, often used in Shakespearean sonnets, typically use rhyme schemes such as A, B, and A, B, A. This rhyme scheme is what allows for the better flow. A ballad is a type of poem that also uses quatrains and has rhyme schemes. It's another type of poetry that uses rhyming to accentuate the flow of the piece. Theme is also an important aspect of literature. In Beowulf, the theme of how loyalty is the paramount quality in a person was very evident and impacted the text when Wiglaf was rewarded and praised for his loyalty to Beowulf when he helped him fight the treacherous dragon. This understanding is deeper than merely comprehending the facts or plot. Also, literature allows readers to explore the mindset of society that is different than their own and apply it to their own lives.
Definitely. Over the time period of developing our novel, I've learned to be concise, clearly stating my ideas, backing it up with support, and creating connections while avoiding cliches and unnecessary lengthiness. Our editor certainly helped point out my weaknesses and develop my work into a more cohesive piece of work. I feel I've also grown as a writer throughout this process.
My writing has improved so much since starting this paper. I had never written in literary analysis before this, so it was a fun challenge. I learned how to effectively find research that applies to my claim and back it up. Since I had so much freedom for writing this book, I learned how to approach it on my own first, and then use the editor for support and guidance. Thus, I was able to be more independent and develop my ideas my own way. This allowed me to pull together a lengthier, cohesive analysis. Now I feel much more confident in my writing and look forward to new challenges in the future. Pulling together this first book was a struggle, but hopefully it makes my future endeavors that much easier.
I'm glad we wrote this book when we did. I'm thinking of the short-term benefits and how much this will prepare us for our board exams next week to earn our degree in literature. Also, my future career in English will benefit from having learned how to craft a literary analysis and effectively intertwining literature from different eras.
Since you mentioned board exams, it reminds me that we still have a whole semester of school left. I hope that we study epigraphs and allusions so that I can understand the difference between the two. I want to learn what makes these devices so effective, since I imagine that not all readers will be able to pick up on the epigraph or allusion.
Oh, remember when the professor touched on satirical humor? I can't wait to delve into that more and get a better understanding of how to incorporate it into my writing.
It's funny to think back to when we first started this book. I simply pulled all the books I could find from the Anglo-Saxon time and wrote down all the information I could. Then I decided on what I found interesting and decided to focus on religion.
Same. I read all I could online, and in the books, I decided.
Was that what you wanted to focus on, right?
Basically. On the second part of the novel, The Medieval Time, the research was less overwhelming since I already knew what topic to focus on.
For sure. By the Renaissance portion of the novel, I knew exactly which information to extract, and had ideas on how I believed different pieces of information could interact to support my claim as I was researching.
Wow. Well, that was quite the journey. Good luck selling that to my audience. I'm so sorry you had to sit through that. But thanks for watching GNN. I hope you have a good day.